The Mid-Season Invitational is the second most prestigious trophy in all of League of Legends esports. With MSI 2026 finally upon us, let's take a look back at every MSI champion and relive every outplay, underdog story, and figure out who truly ruled the mid-season. The first ever MSI tournament took place in 2015. Riot wanted to start hosting additional international events outside of just the World Championship, and thus MSI was born. The inaugural event was hosted in Tallahassee, Florida within the United States, and consisted of a total of 6 different teams, the number 1 seed from each region, and an additional team from an international wildcard invitational qualifier. This whole tournament was playing out to be a victory lap for Korea's SK Telecom T1, but China's Edward Gaming had other plans. In a series that defined a new era of League, these two teams pushed each other to a tense Game 5 in the MSI Finals, which EDG made a bold but calculated gamble by locking in Evelynn, a high-risk jungle pick, and Morgana mid to attempt to hold off the pressure from a young Faker and put SKT back on their heels. When the Nexus finally fell, EDG secured a 3-2 victory, making this the first ever time that Faker has ever lost a major international final. EDG jungler Clearlove was awarded with the inaugural MVP trophy for his performance throughout the event and showed the world that this was more than just a win. It shattered the myth that Korea was invincible and solidified the LPL as a legitimate rival for the World League of Legends throne. Moving on to MSI 2016, which was hosted in Shanghai, China, the pressure was on for SK Telecom T1 to prove that the previous year was just a fluke and that they should remain at the top of the table. The tournament highlighted the evolving meta as teams struggled to adapt to the rising power of mid lane control picks and objective focus rotations. SKT once again marched through the entire bracket, proving that their tactical discipline was still second to none. While North American underdog Counterlogic Gaming provided a spirited performance throughout the tournament, just to face off versus this Korean powerhouse in the grand finals. Unfortunately, this matchup went just how you thought it would go, with SKT dismantling their opponents in a dominant 3-0 sweep, winning the trophy and re-establishing their iron grip on the region. Faker was awarded with the MVP title for his efforts, and this victory not only restored their pride, but served as a stark reminder to the rest of the world that the slump of 2015 was merely a setback. In 2017, the event moved over to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Entering the event, SK Telecom T1 arrived as back-to-back tournament favorites, carrying the immense momentum of their dominant 2016 performance. The narrative centered on whether any region had finally found the blueprint to dismantle the Korean juggernaut, or if SKT would once again just assert their dominance. The grand finals of this tournament set the stage for a clash between SKT and Europe's G2 Esports. While G2 managed to steal a game and challenge SKT's tactical composition, the series ultimately demonstrated the widening gap between regions. SKT secured a decisive 3-1 victory, cementing their second consecutive MSI title. Support player Wolf was honored with the MVP title and showed that this victory was a statement of pure consistency. In 2015, T1 had a stumble. In 2016, it was their recovery. But in 2017, it left us all having a reminder that SKT was operating on a different tier of professional play. By 2018, the Mid-Season Invitational moved to Paris, France, and the narrative of total Korean domination finally began to crack under extreme pressure. Royal Never Give Up, representing China's LPL, arrived with a team built around the unparalleled mechanical ability of Uzi. After years of falling just short on the international stage, this was the moment the LPL has been building towards, seeking to reclaim the glory EDG has initiated 3 years prior. In the grand finals, RNG faced off against Kingzone Dragon X of the LCK in a series that would redefine the power dynamics of the tournament. While the LCK was still widely considered the strongest region, RNG dismantled their opponent with aggressive playmaking and a unique bot-centric meta that caught Kingzone completely off guard, securing RNG a 3-1 victory. As expected, Uzi won MVP honors and provided his team with this monumental win, not just for his scoreline, but for what it represented. The LPL has officially broken the Korean stranglehold on the international circuit. By the time the final Nexus fell, it was clear that the tides have turned, signaling a new start to a highly competitive era where the gap between the LPL and the LCK has been reduced to nothing. In 2019, the tournament was hosted in Vietnam and Taiwan, and the narrative shifted from Asian dominance to the rise of the West. G2 Esports entered the event with a roster built for innovation, trading traditional roles for flexibility, high-threat compositions, and just overall strong mechanics. They were on a mission to prove that European creativity could outmaneuver the more rigid playstyles of the East. In a stunning run, G2 steamrolled through their bracket and met fellow underdog Team Liquid in the grand finals. While the North American side has just pulled off a miracle upset against the defending world champions Invictus Gaming, they found themselves completely outclassed by G2's relentless tempo. In a brutal display of efficiency, G2 dismantled Liquid in a swift 3-0 sweep. Winning in just under an hour and a half of total game time, G2 didn't just win, they humiliated their opposition. Caps was given the MVP honors, and as the Nexus fell, G2 has cemented themselves as a new global powerhouse, proving that the gap between the West and the East is slowly starting to close. Sadly, due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, there was next to no international events going on at that time, and Riot had to make the unfortunate decision to cancel that year's MSI tournament. In 2021, Riot once again began hosting more in-person international events, including MSI in Reykjavik, Iceland, following the previous year's cancellation of the tournament. Although this tournament had a catch, it came with strict health protocols in place and no live audience. The tournament served as a vital re-emergence for professional League of Legends. The narrative of this tournament was defined by the clash between two titans, China's Royal Never Give Up and the reigning world champion, Korea's Daejeon Gaming. The grand finals lived up to the hype. Both teams were pushed to a grueling Game 5 series. In a back-and-forth battle of macro, precision, and mechanical brilliance, RNG ultimately edged out Daejeon 3-2 to secure their second ever MSI title. With big Uzi-sized shoes to fill, Gala won the MVP honors, and RNG's victory underscored the continued strength of the LPL and cemented them as one of the most successful organizations in the event's history. As the players celebrated in an isolated venue, the win served as a powerful signal that despite the global uncertainty of the previous year, the highest level of competitive play has not missed a beat. The 2022 MSI tournament was held in Busan, South Korea, and became a historic stage for a high-stakes collision between the LPL and the LCK. T1 entered the tournament with massive momentum, finishing off a completely perfect undefeated domestic split, and they were eager to secure an international trophy in front of their own home crowd. Opposing them were the defending champions Royal Never Give Up, who were competing under very unique conditions due to strict China travel restrictions at the time that forced them to play the entire tournament remotely on much higher ping due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The grand finals between these two titans pushed the limits of competitive play, ultimately extending into a grueling high-pressure best-of-5. RNG's tactical adaptation and resiliency proved to be the difference maker, as they successfully neutralized T1's aggressive playstyle and secured a 3-2 victory. Jungler Wei won MVP honors, and this win was a landmark moment in esports history. By successfully defending their title, RNG became the first organization to capture 3 MSI championships. It was heartbreaking for T1 and their fans, but it cemented RNG's status as a legendary dynasty, proving that even against a dominant, domestically undefeated opponent on their own home turf, the LPL champions possess the poise and skill it takes to reign supreme. The 2023 MSI tournament arrived in London, England, introducing a revamped double elimination format that heightened the stakes of every series. The narrative of the tournament was defined by the overwhelming strength of the LPL, which eventually culminated in a historic Civil War Grand Finals between JD Gaming and Billy Gaming. While teams from other regions arrived with the goal of challenging the status quo, the Chinese representatives proved to be in a league of their own. JD Gaming, led by their powerhouse mid laner Knight, showcased a level of synergy and clinical execution that left their opponents with no room for error. Despite a valiant run from Billy Gaming, who successfully carved a path for themselves through the lower bracket, they ultimately fell to Gen.G 3-1 in the Grand Finals. By the time that the Nexus exploded, JD Gaming stood atop the podium, making this their first ever MSI title and cementing the LPL as a dominant force in professional League of Legends. Knight won MVP honors, and this event not only validated JDG's domestic perfection, but secured as a chilling reminder to the rest of the world that the gap between the LPL and the field has never been wider. In 2024, MSI traveled to Chengdu, China, with stakes higher than ever. The winner would secure a direct qualification spot for the World Championship. The tournament became a stage for Gen.G to finally shed their domestic-only reputation and cement themselves as an international powerhouse. Facing the home crowd favorite Billy Gaming in the Grand Finals, Gen.G delivered a surgical 3-1 performance that silenced any remaining doubters. The series was a masterclass in adaptation, featuring standout performances that propelled the roster to their first ever international title. With this win, Gen.G became just the second ever Korean organization to claim an MSI trophy, effectively ending the 3-year streak of the LPL dominance in the tournament. Support player Lehens was given the MVP honors, and it was a career-defining moment for Chovy, who finally captured the international gold that he has been chasing for all these years. As the dust settled in Chengdu, it was clear that Gen.G had not only elevated their own legacy, but also signaled a shifting tide, proving that the LCK was back in full force and ready to reclaim its throne on the global stage. And finally, the 2025 MSI tournament took place in Vancouver, Canada, with the narrative that was dominated by an unstoppable Gen.G who arrived with a massive winning streak and an ambition to cement their status as the new kings of the International League of Legends. In a high-stakes Grand Finals, Gen.G faced off versus their domestic rivals, T1. The series was an instant classic, pushing both squads to their absolute limits in a grueling 5-game showdown. While T1 displayed flashes of their trademark brilliance, Gen.G's clinical precision and resilience under pressure ultimately proved to be the difference maker. With a 3-2 victory, Gen.G successfully defended their title, becoming only the third team in MSI history to win back-to-back championships. The series also shattered viewership records, proving that a hunger for elite competition was still higher than ever. Chovy was given the MVP honors, and Gen.G won more than just a trophy. They solidified their position as a modern dynasty, leaving no doubt that the current era of League of Legends international play belongs to them. With MSI 2026 happening in Daejeon, Korea, hype is starting to reach an all-time high. The narrative is wide open. Can the LCK Titans defend on their home turf, or will another region step up to the plate? With legacies on the line and the global landscape more competitive than ever, one thing is for certain. The next chapter of League of Legends esports history is about to be written. With only one question left to answer, who will be the kings of the mid-season? We're just gonna watch the game. All right then. That's what we like to see.